Hello, loves. Today I have compiled quite a few good stories. Let's get started. Story: The guy that I'm in 24F seeing is starting to act weird and I need help out of this situation. I think I've made a mistake. I have gotten myself into a really bad situation. I was desperate for what I thought was the type of love I needed to feel normal, but now I want absolutely nothing to do with this man or romantic relationships anymore in general. I do not look like an adult. It's genes. My whole family looks way younger than their actual age, with people thinking my mom is my sister sometimes. I look underaged, and have had people guess anywhere between 14 to 18. When I was in Florida about a month ago by myself for vacation, I even had people asking me where my mom was, and the security people in the airport pulled me aside to ask me if I was traveling with anyone. I am not particularly short, but have a very skinny build, ridiculous baby face, and braces, which doesn't help with everything. Nobody can ever guess that I am my real age. I try to hide it most of the time honestly because I'm starting to feel a certain way about getting older. I am not saying this to brag, but it is relevant to what I'm about to explain. Because of how I look, I usually only get hit on by two types of guys. The first group are obvious teenage boys who think I'm their age, and the second is older, usually middle-aged men for whatever reason. There is no in-between. Rarely does any guy my age actually flirt with me, probably because they think I'm younger. This used to really bother me because I am not interested in teenage boys for obvious reasons: age, maturity difference, and because they scare me tbh, and older men who hit on me in that context creep me out. No matter what I did, it wouldn't change. I tried to dress more sexy, but that's not me at all. I don't like dressing sexy and it makes me look awkward. I have a very particular, girly way of dressing that involves a lot of pink and pastel colors. Probably doesn't help, but I can't help what styles I'm attracted to. About 7 months ago, while I was out at the library, a guy approached me while I was sitting at a table reading. He started flirting with me, asking me about what I was reading, and said he thought I was very cute. We ended up exchanging numbers. I admit I was a bit flattered by the attention, and he was cute, so I thought, why not, I'll call him just to see what he's like. He looked to be maybe in his early 30s, which isn't too old for me to date. I called him the next day, and we started hanging out a lot. He took me on dates, and we went on walks, and to other nice places. I found out his age on the fourth date. He is actually in his mid-40s. We didn't label ourselves as anything at first. Despite his age, he was really nice to be around. He didn't demoralize me for my more childlike interests, or way of clothing, or anything. He actually would buy me clothes that matched my aesthetic: stuffed animals, Disney things. Yes, I'm a Disney girl, and called me his baby, little girl. I thought it was just a cute little pet name. I didn't feel weird around him. I actually felt like there was finally someone who understood me. But everything changed when he found out my age about 3 weeks ago. Yes, I never mentioned it, because he never asked, and didn't seem to care. He started making these weird comments about my age. How when I eventually turn 25 everything goes downhill from there. He keeps asking me if I would stay the same for him, his baby girl. He's cold but affectionate at the same time, which confuses me. Now he wants me to do all of these role-playing things, and to call him daddy, which I've never done. I'll be getting my braces off soon. I was really excited about this because I've had them in my mouth for years, but he seemed disappointed, and said that maybe I should prolong my appointments, keep scheduling out, because they're a part of me that he really likes. I am starting to get a weird feeling about him, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. I feel like maybe I want to stop dating hanging around him, but we've been together so much that even when I tell myself not to respond any more to his calls, I always end up calling him anyway. If I don't respond after so many hours, he'll show up to my house, which is bad, because my mom I still live with her knows nothing about him, and I don't want her to find out about him. And even though he makes sometimes hurtful comments about my age, I'm attached to the way he's made me feel. How he's made me feel normal for my other interests, and liked. I have never been in a relationship before, and I thought I wanted one. But I honestly don't want to be bothered by men anymore, at least right now. I feel stuck and torn. I'm sick of being in a tug-of-war between his coldness and affection. I told him yesterday that I needed a break, but he blew up at me. I don't think he'll leave me alone, and I don't know what else to do. I feel like life won't be the same without him, but I also feel so exhausted, and I don't think this is what relationships are supposed to feel like. Is there a way that I could talk to him to make him understand my perspective? I'm thinking maybe we can still be semi-distant friends who occasionally hang out if he stops making comments about my age and my appearance, which is honestly not flattering to be told I look like a little girl. I'm trying not to get my mom or brother involved, who I know will start seeing red and make the situation worse. I am starting to feel weird about the guy I've been seeing dating. He made me feel understood and appreciated at first, but since he found out my age, is starting to act cold toward me, make comments about my weight, and calling me a little girl. I'm trying to cut down contact without things escalating and need some help. I have no experience in relationships. Story: at an impasse with girlfriend about her education. What do I do? 26M and 26F. My girlfriend is really upset about her choice of schools and wants my help, but didn't apply and doesn't seem to be putting in effort. What do I do? My girlfriend is bright and driven, but deeply depressed and prone to shutdowns. She dropped out of art school as an upper junior a long time ago in the midst of family and personal chaos. Now, 6 years later, she's completed an associate's degree and wants to finish a bachelor's. The problem is that she doesn't like the only school that took her a high-quality but less exciting local public college. The problem isn't her grades. She graduated summa cum laude with glowing recommendations for multiple professors. I told her while she was applying that a full-time job plus a full course load and an internship would make it near impossible to make a good application anywhere. She chose to continue full throttle anyway and missed nearly every deadline. She specifically chose not to apply to the local Ivy League institution because it would be embarrassing, in her words. Now she is in tears every single day as she feels her potential is being wasted. It doesn't help that said public college has horrible bureaucracy and has messed up her credit evaluation. For the record, I agree that she could get into a better institution if she put her mind to it. She has been in deeper moments of crisis shouting at me and telling me I didn't help enough, but I just am not sure what I should have done without her giving herself the space to work on it. A few times I've suggested applying for the coming spring, but she just starts self-deprecating and shutting that down. She begs for help and accuses me of getting in the way of her dreams, but then turns down every specific offer of help. I am feeling really drained. I want to know what personal changes I can make to stop feeling so drained and support her better. When I began writing this, she was on her way out to the gym. She stopped right at the front door to turn around and complain about the school situation. This escalated into telling me how ugly she thought she was. I tried reassuring her, and she opened her phone and started going through pictures of herself from years ago to illustrate her point. This escalated into calling herself a failure with nowhere to go in the world, which then escalated into throwing her phone and making suicide jokes. Finally, I couldn't take it and had a panic attack, at which point her mood changed and she began kissing me all over, at which I could only cringe, and then left for the gym as if nothing had happened. This all took over 3 hours. There are of course many sides to every story. Here are the ways I give her a hard time. I am a teacher and the generic book-smart type. She has significant trauma with school, and especially with her father, who used to shake her and call her stupid. She really doesn't like my intellectual show-offy manner. I try to minimize this and talking about work in general, but I know that I haven't done enough. I could certainly be a better listener and better at responding to her when she spirals. I know that I am supposed to remain calm and reassuring, but it does hurt. The result is that I am at first robotic and then despondent. I just still haven't found the best way to be supportive. I myself have rather low self-confidence. I know this is really unattractive and not very healthy to be around. There is surely much more that I don't see about myself. How should I support her? To what extent should I be helping her? I can't start these applications for her, that would be a breach of ethics. But should I just accidentally do so anyway? This is important to me, and I want to make sure she has a good outcome. Story: my husband told me he also loves someone else. My husband, Grant, 33 male, and I, 30 female, have been together for 12 years, married 3. We originally were living in my home state, but moved to his after his parents' health started to take a decline. We've been living here for several years now. In that time I met a girl, 26 female, at work about 3 years into us moving, and after bringing her around me, my husband and her were all friends. We had a period where we didn't talk with her for maybe 2 years due to issues in our relationship with how my work was going, and her with a toxic friend group. TBF, we should have stayed and helped her out, but my husband and I were having a tough time barely seeing each other. Eventually, we reconnected at the beginning of the year, and we would bring her out of her house to hang out and let her decompress from home life. A few months ago, I noticed Grant was a lot more silent than normal, barely texting when we were at work and being somewhat physically distant. I eventually asked him what was wrong, and he said he was going through some mental issues. We both are diagnosed depressed, so I thought it stemmed from that. We made up, but there's still a very subtle hint of tension. When hanging or chatting in person, Grant is reserved, not as much in chat but definitely in person. I noticed in our friend chat he was the one more likely to initiate conversation than when it was just us, and I thought he was just trying to help keep her occupied. He initiated hangouts, which was weird because we were both home buddies. It started to nag at me when we would all hang out, and he would buy things for her too. I'm the one in the friend work group that people go to for advice, so I tend to pick up on things more than others, and about a month ago it sort of dawned on me that there was more than friendship there, at least from him. Recently, Grant was even more in his thoughts, and it was concerning me. I eventually got him to start talking, and at first he was very vague, and kept insisting he loved me. I didn't doubt that, but I had to guess he had feelings for someone, and guess again it was our friend. My heart sank when he acknowledged it, because it seemed like at first he couldn't admit it to himself. He eventually told me that he sort of figured it out when I confronted him about the distance, and had been battling with himself on how to tell me. He did insist he did not love me less, but loves her the same as me. I'll be honest, I'm probably still in shock and I'm not sure how to process. I feel like I should have been mad when he told me, but I can't bring myself to be. I'm not mad at her because she doesn't know. She's also in a relationship of her own and has never really expressed interest in anybody but the person she's with. And I understand people can love differently and the same for different people. We both just didn't think we would have to deal with this. I'm just not sure how to proceed. This man is the love of my life, and I don't think I can feel the same way I do for him as someone else. Leaving him isn't an option for me. I just need a way to navigate this. Story, I, F, 30, don't know how to cope with my boyfriend, M, 41, of 2 years and his inability to grasp reality. I'm 30 years old, struggling to cope with what I believe is my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend's, 41 years old, lack of a full sense of reality. To provide some context, this all started about 2 years ago, 3 months after we started dating, when he had an episode of acute psychosis and committed himself under the Baker Act. He was afraid of people breaking in the windows and thought someone had broken into his roommate's room, so he broke down his roommate's door. Since then, he has been functioning relatively well and appears to be of sound mind in casual conversations. However, he has occasionally mentioned that he still sees shadow beings but has learned to live with them. He doesn't want to discuss this further because he fears being labeled crazy. He also reaches conclusions that make no sense and refuses to listen to me or accept any evidence that contradicts his beliefs. The most notable and persistent example is his belief that I supply weed to the local dealer I have bought small amounts from before. Despite having no reason to think this and me offering proof and even sharing my GPS location, he refuses to believe me. He doesn't believe almost anything I say, which is stressful and odd. When I was recently in the hospital, he didn't believe what I told him the doctor said either. I'm fed up with being treated this way and constantly being accused of lying. I've told him to stay away multiple times, which is why I referred to him as my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. However, he shows up anyway, acting as if it's a normal day. If I tell him to leave, he refuses and just sits on the couch, knowing I can't physically make him leave. Recently, he's been talking about missing his family out of state. I've encouraged him to go be with them, as it seems he takes out a lot of his negative emotions on me and might be happier there. But he responds that he'll do what he wants, either staying or going, and won't be chased off by me. I really don't know how to cope with any of this. I'm 30 years old, struggling with my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend's, 41 years old, disconnection from reality. After an episode of acute psychosis 2 years ago, he still sees shadow beings and holds irrational beliefs, like thinking I supply weed to a local dealer. He refuses to believe anything I say, even about my recent hospital visit. Despite telling him to stay away, he shows up and refuses to leave. He misses his out-of-state family, and I've encouraged him to go, but he insists on doing what he wants and won't be chased off. I don't know how to cope with this situation. I neglected to mention that his mother has been diagnosed as bipolar, so I often wonder if any of this behavior from him are symptoms of bipolar. I have attempted to bring this up to him, but he shuts me down and won't even consider the possibility. Story: How do I, F32, communicate to my best friend, F32, that her career goals are becoming an obstacle in our friendship? Hello everyone, I am in a kind of pickle with one of my very dear friends. She is very nice, talkative, and social, but very career-driven, which is a good thing, and I have been pushing her to do more with her life. She has been taking care of her sick dad for years and didn't go out much. I met 2.5 years ago, and her dad unfortunately passed away in April. Since I met her, she started working a job to have more of a purpose, and then she got a second one since she felt like one wasn't enough, both government jobs, but still at junior level. Even last year we didn't do like a weekly hangout, more like once a month and a half kind of meet to do a catch-up of our lives. But since the beginning of the year we meet up just twice, once in January on my birthday and then unfortunately when her father passed. I have been trying to reach out every other week to check up on her and if possible meet up, but she just takes on every possible chore that her job gives her voluntarily, even if we have plans to get up the ladder faster by doing more than her job description. This was even before her father passed. The pickle is that when sometimes friends from outside the country or relatives come to our city, she makes time for them, but for me it feels like I have become a burden and she doesn't want to meet. I brought it up with her once after my birthday and she did tell me that she wants to focus more on work since she hasn't been able to due to her father's illness and really cares about me and considers me like family, but every attempt to hang out seems to be shut down because of work. We sometimes make plans and then she doesn't follow up with a meeting hour, so I text her. She then says that she is working so she cannot make it like today. She more often than not doesn't reach out to inform me about the cancelled plans. She is a great friend to me and I do care about her, so I was wondering how do I bring it up to her to meet up a little more often, still not weekly due to her work, but maybe once at every 2 months max since my feelings are getting hurt by this constant rejection, poor planning on her part. My best friend who is very career focused at the moment doesn't make any time for a meet-up, cancels plans without telling me most of the time. How do I bring it up to her that this is hurting my feelings and our friendship? Story: I, F30, don't know how to cope with my boyfriend, M41, of 2 years and his inability to grasp reality. My 30 years old friend Alice, 28 years old, and I initially bonded over shared trauma. Last year I stopped drinking, smoking due to the impact on my mental health. I'll have the occasional drink or edible, but my social life no longer revolves around getting intoxicated. Alice still binge drinks socially, gets high every day. When I turn down her offers to smoke or drink, she is visibly disappointed, repeatedly asking if I'm sure. Although my sobriety isn't a problem with my other friends, I sometimes cave to pressure from her. Recently I hosted Alice and her partner David for dinner. I texted her a few days prior explaining I was dealing with some family issues, not in the right headspace to entertain, suggesting we go out to eat instead. She talked me into hosting anyway, saying how excited she was, promising to make it stress-free for me. Spoiler alert, it was not stress-free at all. My partner had to leave early, so the three of us hung out in my living room afterwards. Despite my grief over said family troubles, I tried to put on a brave face. Alice produced a joint, I accepted, hoping it might relax me. For the next 30 minutes, I could feel myself talking too much about our upcoming trip for my 30th. David, who is very shy, didn't say much. At one point he returned from the bathroom saying he felt ill, was going home. I offered him my bedroom to lie down, but he insisted on leaving. Alice stayed and we went out dancing. 2 days later, Alice revealed David was hurt I had ignored him, asked what I had against him. I was confused because I recalled interacting with David that night. I told her the truth, that I hadn't meant to snub him. If I was less than socially adept, it was due to the weed. She kept repeating that I had ignored him. I asked for examples, but all she could say was that the conversation wasn't inclusive of him. I asked why she didn't do more to include him in the conversation then. She got upset, said I was trying to minimize my behavior and evade accountability. For the sake of our friendship, I agreed to apologize to him directly. She told me not to, as he wasn't ready. I was confused, but left it alone. She spent my birthday trip getting wasted at every opportunity. In a moment of sobriety, she again pressed me to come clean about why I ignored David. I got upset because I'd already told her the truth. She dropped it. The next day she gave me the silent treatment, then bought a bottle of tequila to drink on an empty stomach, while on psych meds. I confronted her. Cue the same argument. I decided to leave, enjoy the rest of my trip solo. I accepted her apology but expressed concerns about her drinking, which offended her. Since then we've had other conflicts that have left me emotionally exhausted. I've had to fight tooth, nail to assert my boundaries. After our latest fight, she is eager to mend things, but I'm starting to think this friendship isn't healthy. I hate to throw away 5 years of friendship, but I feel I need to protect my peace. After my best friend accused me of ignoring her boyfriend, subsequently ruined my 30th birthday trip, I am having trouble trusting her, think it may be time to step away from the friendship altogether. Story: friend didn't invite me to his wedding. My 30 years old friend, 29 years old, got married last month. He hadn't really shared much in terms of his wedding plans with me, and I assumed was having a low-key event with just family, which is why I hadn't been invited, and I was fine with that. Until he sent me a text apologizing for not inviting me, and that the event was for family and friends only. His reasoning was that he couldn't invite me because then by extension he'd have to invite the rest of the community that we associate with. I told him family and friends only, got it. We are Bengali, and there is a large Bengali community where we live, but neither of us are really involved in the community. The only real participation is attending a funeral of a community member. I thought that was a weak, flimsy excuse considering our minimal involvement with the community, and then I heard from a mutual friend that a few community members were actually invited and attended as his father is a big member of the community. In addition, some of the other friends he invited are those he met not too long ago, 1 to 2 years versus knowing me for 20 years. As a grown man, I'm a bit ashamed to say that this hurt me quite a lot. I thought we were super close since we talk on a weekly basis, hang out often, and have been friends for 20 years. I have a small family and very few friends. I considered him one of my closest friends, and he would always tell me things like, "I know you have a small family, but think of me and my family as your family." I feel like he could have invited me privately if he was worried about having to invite the community. Which he ended up doing anyway by inviting some members. Funnily enough, some community members were surprised that I wasn't there, and I told them I wasn't invited. My family was also hurt and offended by this situation and know his family very well. Friend still texts me on a weekly basis like nothing happened since we have many common interests. I hardly reply. Hoping for some advice on how to go about things. My close friend didn't invite me parents to his wedding but invited other friends and other community members. Story: my BF of 4 years told me to find someone else if I want something long-term and that he doesn't believe in monogamy. I'm 26 years old. We've been together since I was 21 years old, he is now 31 years old. We've been together for 4 years in a monogamous relationship. I have a good job and have been stable since we met running my own business. He had a stable job, then 2020 happened and he hasn't been stable financially until the end of last year. We also live together. We were discussing the future and I don't even necessarily want to get married, but a promise ring would be ideal. He brought up having children about a year ago, which I would like to have some form of commitment if we were to go ahead on the child situation. I grew up in a broken home as did he, and I wouldn't like the same for my children ideally. I expressed worries of being a single mother and he said, "You wouldn't be, we would co-parent and you have family and friends, you would be fine." He said no to the promise ring and that he could see being with me for about 5 more years, maybe longer, but not long-term. He told me, "If you want to be with someone forever you should go be with someone else." Which was very painful because this has been the longest relationship in my adult life. Apparently, he doesn't believe in monogamy, which is what I thought our relationship has been since the beginning. A lot of confusion with that because now I question if the last nearly 5 years I've been with this person was even real. I don't want to feel like a burden and I don't know why he ever asked me to be his girlfriend if he doesn't believe in that kind of thing anyways. I'm just truly confused because it didn't feel like I was speaking to him, just a stranger or something. A rug has been pulled out from under me. We never fight or have conflict and usually things are good, but I can't ignore this conversation. I feel hurt and duped, to be honest. Even in times of emotional need, he tells me to go to therapy instead of offering comfort. I feel that things went great up until the last year because I've had a lot of unexpected, uncontrollable situations that have been putting a strain on my happiness, not regarding the relationship, and everything hasn't been sunshine and rainbows. I'm at a loss. This has been a huge slap in the face. I thought we were on the same page up until now, especially when he brought up children. Is it so crazy to ask for a little commitment? Or delusional to want to grow old and have romance together? He's not much of a romance guy. I'm pretty sure he's just comfortable and not deeply in love with me. I could use some advice. My boyfriend of 4 years doesn't believe in monogamy despite our monogamous relationship and told me to go be with someone else if I want something long-term. Super confused because he brought up wanting children with me. I never asked for that or marriage. Story: we, 25M and 25F, need to change our entire relationship after a car accident. I don't know how to talk to her anymore. My 25 years old girlfriend and I have been together for 6 years, and we're talking about getting married someday when all of this happened. I am deeply in love with her, and want to know how to love her better while keeping myself sane about this. We met in college, where we were both loners, but connected over our love of running. Both of us are super into every aspect of this hobby, even more so than a lot of normal people who run. I gotta get into it all. Basically, we were both obsessed with types of shoes, the exact running times on certain local trails, niche techniques, water bottles, etc. Literally everything. And I'd met other people who liked running before, but not in the obsessive way I did. When I met her, it was like finding the other half of my soul immediately, as cheesy and cliché as that is. We built our relationship first as running buddies, and our entire relationship blossomed from there. We would go running together every day, and race each other in some of the most highly competitive races I've ever run. I think we've only ever skipped a handful of days every once in a while in our entire relationship. Our shared hobby is our life, and she is my whole life. We have so many memories on specific trails, and whenever we used to go out we'd talk about the latest news related to our shared interest, new sneakers that were getting released, new water bottles we wanted to try, crazy obsessive shit like that. Fast forward to the present. My girlfriend was in a massive car accident 8 months ago, and is paralyzed from the waist down. She is in a wheelchair, and it's been very hard on us both. All of the hard, scary stuff is over, but we're trying to settle back into our life and literally everything is different. For one, we can't go running together anymore, and we might not be able to ever again. She's in physiotherapy, and the hope is that one day she will be able to run again, though not for a long time. I miss this aspect of our relationship so much. We are still partners in the sense that we share certain finances, and we have been learning how to go out on dates, even having to navigate all the accessibility checks around her wheelchair, but the thing we built our relationship on is gone, or at least won't return for a long time. We've tried going to some of the easier trails, and she wheels beside me while I walk, and it was nice the first few times, but I keep thinking how much it's not the same. And since everything happened, it bums her out to talk about anything related to our shared hobby, so we just don't anymore. This whole thing makes me feel terrible and sad and frustrated. Before all of this, we had the best communication in the world, but I don't know how to talk to her about this without making her feel like I'm blaming her, or like she's not enough. I don't love her any less. My 25 years old girlfriend 25 years old, and I fell in love through running. After a car accident, she cannot run anymore. I don't know how to talk to her about this. Story: help. Should I, 23F, break up with my boyfriend, 28M, airing all our dirty laundry? My boyfriend, 28 years old, and I am 23 years old, have been officially together since February 2024. We started seeing each other in late September 2023. Though we did have an agreement to be exclusive and not see other people since October, we just weren't officially a couple, but by all merits we were one, and we both agreed on that. This is the first relationship for both of us, and as a chronic overthinker, I struggle to differentiate between anxious and legitimate thoughts. My boyfriend partied a lot for 2 years and had a large, outgoing group of party friends and ravers. Initially, everything was great, with only a few minor arguments. However, January was a tough month. My BF went out for drinks with a female friend, Lena, who is his brother's ex, and she confessed her feelings for him. He immediately left and told me everything. But I was hurt because we had agreed not to have one-on-one outings with the opposite sex and because he didn't tell me beforehand. He explained that he saw her as a sister, as she had been with his brother for over 5 years and they had broken up only a few months prior. Although I forgave him, it triggered significant trust issues, and I started checking his phone, with his permission. Afterward, I discovered messages from December where he and his friends discussed attractive women they saw while partying, and he made a comment about one, saying, "Too bad I can't." I forgave him again after he explained that his mentality was influenced by his friend group and their constant partying and festival attending. He also gave up the partying lifestyle and distanced himself from the toxic friend group to be with me and make our relationship work. In April, I learned that in December he had invited a female friend, Sarah, to a festival we were attending together in April with his friend group. I knew her as someone my BF's friend, Mike, was in love with and believed until then that the entire friend group had invited her. However, my BF gave me a false perception of her. She didn't know anyone from the group of 12 attending except for my BF, and while Mike was attending, he would be with his separate friend group. I also found out that my BF used to like Sarah before meeting me, though they had only communicated through Instagram and had never met in person. He had deleted his messages with her in January after the fight about Lena broke out because he said he knew any little thing would trigger me, which is true, TBH. My BF said they needed another person to fill an apartment vacancy and that he invited other friends before landing on her, but that before meeting me, they had already discussed her attending with his friend group. He promised me he didn't pursue her once his friend confided in him that he liked Sarah, which was before he met me. He said they only talked about parties infrequently since then. But now, I discovered that in January he invited her to another festival happening in July, supposedly for the same reason, vacancy. Despite repeatedly asking if there was anything else I should know, he always denied it. He said he forgot about it since it's been 6 months. I don't know if I can trust him anymore. He cut off all his female friends and the toxic friend group after what happened with Lena. Which he offered to do. It was not a demand I made. I never had a problem with female friends until it became one. And even then it was his choice to cut them off. I only wanted him to block Lena. I have seen the difference in him. He is loyal, prioritizes me, and promises on his late parent that he never wanted to cheat on me and that he only saw Sarah as a friend and didn't think anything of the invite. And while he has been great since then, I struggle to process the pain from those months and earlier. I'm unsure what to believe or if this situation is normal. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Yes, I was the first person he invited to these festivals, and the names are fake. Is what my boyfriend did acceptable and not grounds for a breakup, and am I wrong in feeling betrayed? Story: I don't want a relationship with my sister, what do I do? My brother is associating with our half-sister, I don't care to, and it's becoming uncomfortable. I'm typically pretty loquacious, so I'll try to cut it down. I am 38 years old, grew up with both my parents, and 36 years old my younger brother. My dad was married before my mom and had 2 kids, a son and a daughter, both of whom are about 10 years older than me. Not super relevant, but my parents divorced when I was in college. My understanding is that my dad wasn't perfect, but his ex was vindictive and fed my half-siblings a bunch of crap so they'd hate him, which worked for a while. Eventually, my half-bro reconciled. I guess my half-sis did to some extent, because I met her and her husband when I was a teen. It was easy to form a friendship of sorts with my half-brother because we had similar interests. I think his sister never fully came around to my dad, which, whatever. Reader's Digest version is that I have a fine relationship with half-bro and, for most of my life, no contact with his sister. Recently, my younger brother got all 4 of us together. It was a fine time. I enjoy hanging out with my brothers and the half-sister seemed fine enough, besides lightly shit-talking my dad, despite not talking to him for decades. Her son was super nice and I thought we all had a good time. At the end of the night, I was completely blindsided by her suggesting we should have a heart-to-heart of sorts. I know my younger brother had a convo with her about. I honestly don't know what, but anyway. I have no investment in that relationship. I absolutely meant no offense, but I told her I didn't feel it was necessary, but we could, if it would make her happy. I definitely admit that that seems a bit harsh, but I didn't intend it to be. I have no problem with her, but I also don't have the emotional and mental bandwidth right now to try to form a new relationship, let alone one I don't care about. And I don't feel compelled to put myself out for it. I'm nearly 40, she's never made an attempt at a relationship before, and that's fine. I only mean to say that she didn't spend her life pining for a relationship with her half-sister, and that absolutely does not hurt my feelings. She was evidently very offended. My younger brother invited me to another gathering, and while I'd love to go, I don't want to deal with her. She's rather dramatic, and I anticipate an issue with us both being there. My ideal scenario is getting her to understand that we are basically strangers, and I like hanging out with her, but we're not family and I don't care for us to be. Kind of makes the gathering complicated. For what it's worth, I understand how this sounds, but I hold no animosity towards her. It is truly complete indifference, and I have too much on my plate right now to feign caring. So, I'm not sure how to proceed with the invite. Story: How to tell if my 25F partner, 25M, is emotionally or verbally abusive. I am 25 years old and am starting to think that my relationship with 25 years old my boyfriend of about 1 year is not just toxic but abusive. He's always been quick to anger and a little jealous, but recently he's said and done things that are making me question my perceptions of myself and the relationship. I called a female friend recently who I hadn't spoken to in months, and we spoke for about 30 to 40 minutes catching up. He acted weird on the phone call, and afterwards he exploded. He accused me of talking to her about other men and intentionally trying to cover the conversation. He said I locked the door to the bathroom. I was peeing. He said I turned the bedroom fan on so he couldn't hear. We turned the fan on to go to sleep, and it was nearly 10 p.m. He said I left the room to hide the conversation. He was already in bed and I was trying to be respectful because he wakes up 3 hours before me. He refused to listen to my explanation. The next day he apologized profusely over text, which is a pattern in our relationship. Outbursts followed by long apologies the next day. Today, I worked a 10-hour shift while he was at home. I did a 50-hour week as my boss was out sick. I get home and I'm talking to him while opening the fridge and he goes past me and I accidentally shut the door on his hand that has a blister on it. Although his hand was fine, he turns to me and screams, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" in my face. I apologized and said although I was looking, I wasn't really seeing as my brain is fried and I'm tired. He proceeded to go off and then was even angrier when I was upset that he screamed in my face. He refused to apologize for that. That argument then derailed despite me trying to end it multiple times because it was no longer productive. We were just going in loops. I tried to turn and watch TV and he stood in front of the TV. I recorded part of our conversation. We're in a one-party consent state, and in those 2 recordings, he called me a narcissist, a pathological liar, autistic, and an asshole. I want to upload those so people can hear his voice and the context because I'm really feeling insane right now, but I'm unsure if that's against this sub's rules. At one point, he realized I was recording and took my phone and threw it on the floor in the other room. I got up and got it, and he seemed to back off from that once I told him me recording was legal in this state and that if he took my phone again, I would consider myself to be in actual danger and would leave. I've been thinking about leaving him, but it's hard as we live together. Now, I'm worried that I actually need to figure something out and quickly because I'm worried this is going to derail. He claims to love me and that I mean the world to him, but I once told him I wanted to break up and I'll never forget his response: "You deserve whatever I do, honestly." My 25 years old, boyfriend 25 years old, and I fight a lot, but I'm unsure if it's starting to become abusive. Story: It's the 45th time within 2.5 months I started crying because I don't feel smart enough. Imposter. Hey, me 30 years old, am dating someone 22 years old since 2.5 months. Yes, the age difference was unexpected. I look younger, he looks older, so we both thought we are 25 on 26. But that's not the problem here. He is very genuine, rational, smart, active in society, etc. We met at some critical theory workshop in Berlin. I figured he won some national competition in sociology and is studying politics and philosophy. When we are together, except at these situations when I start overthinking and then crying, we have the best time in our life. We vibe a lot, have the same sense of humor, trust each other, prefer STH more than vanilla, and I feel very comfortable by his side. But there is this one thing my therapists could not really help me with yet, so he likes talking about philosophy and I learn a lot and love it. At the same time, when he says something and I don't have a smart answer, it already happened a few times that I started crying, fearing he would figure out sooner or later that I was not as knowledgeable as he was. More like average, but not a prodigy who reads as many books as he does, etc. I studied law, am doing my PhD, and am very interested into philosophy and politics, but don't have so much time as to indulge super deep in it. I did have good grades, achieved quite some things, but BCPF childhood, which I apparently did not process completely yet. I think I only deserve love when successful and smart. When I cry, he is super kind and calms me down, saying I was smart and did not have to say anything. However, since it happened quite often now, he does say that he does not feel comfortable when it happens so often, which I totally get. I would question myself as well, if my partner was crying BC of me. Any advice on how to stop crying, regain my self-confidence? I am scared this will become a self-fulfilling prophecy and I will somehow fuck it up. Indeed, just today, when I cried again, I said, maybe I need a partner who is less smart, which, obviously, hurt him a lot. That he communicated clearly, saying it was not cool. I tend to do these things to protect me and rather fuck it up myself than to let somebody dump me, which is very psycho, I know, and I am scared it happened in the first place. I think I can control myself in not saying something similar like that again, especially since I don't want no other, but about the crying, I am not sure. My partner is very knowledgeable in philosophy and, from time to time, passionately tells me something about this topic. I find that fascinating, but at the same time, I start overthinking, thinking I don't know as much as he does and he will break up with me once he finds out. Imposter. Story: am I overreacting that my boyfriend doesn't propose to me? Me 31 years old and my partner 31 years old are together for 7 years now, and we just bought our very first house last week. We have been together since we were 24 and we are not engaged, and I don't know if he ever want to propose because he's not really talking about it. Even when I ask him we just arguing about it, so I never thought about marriage when I was younger, but then when we both turned like 26 to 27 I started to show interest about it, and at the same time everybody around us, all our friends got engaged, had wedding, expected their first child, etc. And I mentioned him that I want to get engaged before I turn 30. He never said anything. And I just kept repeating myself and he just kept saying nothing. I felt guilty and bad for mentioning and saying things like this to him because I didn't want to put pressure on him, but at the same time I wanted to know his thoughts and also let him know what I want. We were already saving up for deposit to buy a house, and once he said that after we have the house we want he can buy a nice ring and propose, but right now he doesn't have £5,000 to spend on a ring. I already knew what ring I want and that doesn't cost that much, and also I would never want him to buy me such an expensive ring anyway, so I told him this and I sent him the rings I like, and I told him he can choose which one he wants to propose with. I just wanted him to know I don't expect anything expensive, I just want to see that he is serious too, just like me. His answer was that if he wouldn't be serious he would not buy a house with me. This was like 2 years ago. Since that, every holiday we go on, every night out together, every birthday, every family events we go together, I think he'll do it, but nothing. People around us keep questioning him about it and he just says, oh, our plan is to buy a house first and then I can afford a ring, but it's not our plan, just his. But it's awkward for me and it makes me angry because I already told him I don't want expensive ring and I wanted to get engaged before 30. Every time we talk about this we just arguing. He gets offended because I say what I think and what I feel, and then he doesn't really speaks to me for days. I just realized that we don't want the same things from life and it makes me sad. I'm 31 already and I don't want to say yes anymore to him because I feel he just ruined everything. I don't know what to do anymore because I can't have a serious conversation with him about this, and even if I would have one I feel nothing would change. I don't want to propose to him, that's just not me, and he would not want that either. I think the communication between us is very, very bad and I don't know how to fix it because I know if I mention this he'll not talk to me. I just don't want to wait anymore and I don't want to say yes anymore. And I hate this feeling. Even when I ask him we just arguing about it. Story: help, should I, 23F, break up with my boyfriend, 28M, airing all our dirty laundry. My boyfriend, 28 years old, and I am 23 years old, have been officially together since February 2024. We started seeing each other in late September 2023. Though we did have an agreement to be exclusive and not see other people since October, we just weren't officially a couple, but by all merits we were one, and we both agreed on that. This is the first relationship for both of us, and as a chronic overthinker, I struggle to differentiate between anxious and legitimate thoughts. My boyfriend partied a lot for 2 years and had a large, outgoing group of party friends and ravers. Initially, everything was great, with only a few minor arguments. However, January was a tough month. My BF went out for drinks with a female friend, Lena, who is his brother's ex, and she confessed her feelings for him. He immediately left and told me everything. But I was hurt because we had agreed not to have one-on-one outings with the opposite sex and because he didn't tell me beforehand. He explained that he saw her as a sister, as she had been with his brother for over 5 years and they had broken up only a few months prior. Although I forgave him, it triggered significant trust issues, and I started checking his phone, with his permission. Afterward, I discovered messages from December where he and his friends discussed attractive women they saw while partying, and he made a comment about one, saying, "Too bad I can't." I forgave him again after he explained that his mentality was influenced by his friend group and their constant partying and festival attending. He also gave up the partying lifestyle and distanced himself from the toxic friend group to be with me and make our relationship work. In April, I learned that in December he had invited a female friend, Sarah, to a festival we were attending together in April with his friend group. I knew her as someone my BF's friend, Mike, was in love with and believed until then that the entire friend group had invited her. However, my BF gave me a false perception of her. She didn't know anyone from the group of 12 attending except for my BF, and while Mike was attending, he would be with his separate friend group. I also found out that my BF used to like Sarah before meeting me, though they had only communicated through Instagram and had never met in person. He had deleted his messages with her in January after the fight about Lena broke out because he said he knew any little thing would trigger me, which is true, TBH. My BF said they needed another person to fill an apartment vacancy and that he invited other friends before landing on her, but that before meeting me, they had already discussed her attending with his friend group. He promised me he didn't pursue her once his friend confided in him that he liked Sarah, which was before he met me. He said they only talked about parties infrequently since then. But now, I discovered that in January he invited her to another festival happening in July, supposedly for the same reason, vacancy. Despite repeatedly asking if there was anything else I should know, he always denied it. He said he forgot about it since it's been 6 months. I don't know if I can trust him anymore. He cut off all his female friends and the toxic friend group after what happened with Lena. Which he offered to do. It was not a demand I made. I never had a problem with female friends until it became one. And even then it was his choice to cut them off. I only wanted him to block Lena. I have seen the difference in him. He is loyal, prioritizes me, and promises on his late parent that he never wanted to cheat on me and that he only saw Sarah as a friend and didn't think anything of the invite. And while he has been great since then, I struggle to process the pain from those months and earlier. I'm unsure what to believe or if this situation is normal. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Yes, I was the first person he invited to these festivals, and the names are fake. Is what my boyfriend did acceptable and not grounds for a breakup, and am I wrong in feeling betrayed? Story: feeling unappreciated and neglected in 6-year relationship, seeking advice. My fiancé is 35 years old and I am 29 years old. Have been fighting more recently because his actions seem selfish. We've been together for over 6 years, but I feel like a broken record, constantly repeating myself without any change from him. I've asked him to learn how to cook and be more considerate in the bedroom. He doesn't cook at all, and when he tries, it's a disaster. In the bedroom, he always finishes, leaving me unsatisfied. Only recently has he started to clean up after himself because he was disgusted by his own bodily fluids. He hasn't matured much and still expects me to handle most things. When I went on a 6-month work trip, I hoped he'd learn to be more self-sufficient. Instead, he left the fridge untouched and didn't make any effort to cook, despite promising to make my favorite dishes. When I come home late from work in the gym, I often find him on the couch playing video games or watching TV, with nothing prepared. This frustrates me, especially since he doesn't take any initiative. Each year I've become more vocal about my needs and frustrations, which has led to more arguments. I feel like I'm talking to a toddler, reminding him to treat others how he wants to be treated. He often damages my things and tries to make up for it with money, but that doesn't solve the problem. I'm torn about whether to stay with him. My family loves him and I don't like to share anything bad about my relationships with anyone, even my friends. I can't imagine life without him, but I'm tired of feeling unappreciated and neglected. I'm seeking therapy to sort out my feelings and figure out the best path forward. I feel like I've tried everything and made every initiative. I'm tired of being sent memes in hopes of me forgiving him. I wish he'd stop apologizing and actually solve problems with me. My fiancés and I have been fighting more. I handle most of the chores and feel unappreciated. He doesn't take initiative in cooking or in the bedroom. Considering whether to stay with him and seeking therapy to sort out my feelings. Story: I, at 28F, have been seeing my ex, 33M, and don't know if I should break it off or try to fix things. Ex 38 years old and I am 28 years old were in a long-term relationship that was majorly toxic. Both parties contributed to constant fighting, abusive threats, emotional manipulation, psychological abuse, cheating, etc. throughout the duration of this relationship. Before you write this story off and make the obvious comment that this relationship is unhealthy, just hear me out and put yourself in my shoes. I really love this man and in a lot of ways will always love this man. However, after years of putting up with toxicity and selfishness from him, I had finally had enough. Long story short, we moved out on our own and parted ways, except we never actually stopped talking or seeing each other. We go through phases where everything is wonderful and then I'll find out that he's been looking for new connections on dating apps. When this happens, I tend to wander off and start talking to new people as well. Both of us act like this is unacceptable behavior even though we are not technically in an exclusive relationship. He will tell me how much he loves me and then when we spend time together it seems like all we do is bicker or make jabs at each other. On top of that, there hasn't been any physical intimacy in weeks and he is pushing and pressuring me into it. I feel uncomfortable with this, but he makes a very fair claim that his physical intimacy is an important factor for him. It's clear that the correct answer is to break up and go no contact, but for some reason I just can't seem to do it. I clearly love him very much even if I'm not completely emotionally invested in the relationship right now, and we don't seem to be meeting one another's needs. I also don't trust his words because they don't seem to always match his actions. I truly don't know what to do or how to get through this. We have been terrible to one another and I feel this immense guilt in both leaving and staying. My friends and family can't stand him and vice versa. Does any of this stand a chance? I feel insane even asking this, but at the end of the day I love this man. Any advice, words of wisdom or commisery is welcomed. Ex and I had a toxic relationship but can't stop seeing each other. He ruined the relationship and I ruined the breakup. I feel like I'm either stuck in a cycle of abuse or that maybe I am the abuser. Story: future Fael, 56, keeps putting pressure on me, 32M, and my fiancé, F30, to get married sooner. How do I handle this? To start off, me and my future wife have been together for 3 years and we plan to do a wedding in Greece in 2026. The thing is that I want to save up for the wedding so I can pay for everything. Me and my partner don't agree with the way weddings are done in our country. You go to someone's wedding and give them an envelope with a large amount of cash and in return they will come to your wedding and give you an envelope of cash when your time will come. I completely hate this way of doing things, which is why I want a wedding in another country with few close friends and with no envelopes or gifts. Now the problem is that it will take me some time to raise the money needed and here is where problems start to come. My Phil keeps insisting that we should wed earlier and keeps asking my fiancé why are we taking so long. Also, he offered to pay for everything provided that we do the wedding in our own country or if we insist, to help us with the costs of a foreign wedding, to which I refused for several reasons. The first reason is that he always likes to be in control of everything and by accepting we won't have any say in how the wedding is going to be organized. Secondly, I want to achieve something by myself and offer my partner a memorable experience, and to which I'm 110% sure that my Phil won't agree with some of mine choices. The latest thing that he has done and to which I feel has put some tensions between me and my partner is that he wants to take a trip to Asia in which he wants to go with his wife and his daughter but not with me because he stated that we are not married yet and that he would offer or take us on expensive trips if we were to be married. I feel like he is doing this on purpose to exert pressure on me and my partner. Another thing that my partner tends to agree with him and also started putting pressure on me. She usually tends to agree to what her parents say or get caught in the middle between me and them. Also, for more context, I work a decent job in the IT sector and have a good enough income to afford the Greek wedding. The only problem is that we have to wait a bit. And no, I hate the idea of a bank loan. FIL putting pressure on me and my partner to marry earlier than we planned. I want to wait because I want to pay for the entire wedding by myself since I want to have things in a certain way and won't settle for less or something else. Phil keeps bugging my partner and has recently offered to take her and his wife on an expensive vacation to Asia, but not me since we are not married yet. Story: I'm starting to catch feelings for my boyfriend's friend. My boyfriend, who is 12 years older than me, doesn't really work hard for us. He just works for his father's business and go in whenever while I work at a restaurant serving, and his best friend works hard, so I feel like he would make a great partner. Me 20 years old and my boyfriend 32 years old have been together for almost a year now. We do get a lot of comments about our age difference, which is a little bigger than I'd prefer, but we are both very traditional. Where I live, it's hard to find a guy that's trad, so I instantly fell for him. At first we had a lot of fun, and I wasn't really staying with him all that often. I live an hour away, so it was kinda hard to make time for staying with him with my work schedule and such. My hours got cut at my part-time job, so as I've been looking for a new job, I've been staying with him a lot more. I ended up getting a serving job in his town so I could spend more time with him because he truly does have a lot going on with his father being sick and some court situation. Ever since I started staying with him, I really got to see the real him. His father owns the business he works for, so he does as he pleases pretty much. We sometimes won't roll out of bed and start our days till 1 p.m. on a weekday. It sorta put a bad taste in my mouth because I told him he could leave me here alone and that it was totally okay, I'd clean up the house for him. He just doesn't work at all whenever I'm here, and he doesn't do much around the house, which would be okay if he was working, but he just sorta runs around all day doing little stuff. Although, his dad is in a wheelchair and does need some assistance with certain things, but it doesn't take all day, and his father even said, "When will you start working regularly again?" We've been hanging out with one of his good friends a lot recently who does blue-collar work and has been a Marine before. The more we see him, the more my heart sort of grows this feeling towards him. I would never cheat, but knowing he works hard long hours is a green flag in my eyes, and I feel with my traditional beliefs that he would be a great father and husband willing to work for his family and care for them. He is super respectful and has a big heart. I love my boyfriend now, but in a way he is very feminine, he doesn't really work much, and he also is very obsessed with how he looks, and not in a good way. As I'm at my serving job there for hours on end, I'll check his location and he will still be at the house. I've met a lot of guys who make sure they look presentable, but he is always primping in every single mirror he passes. He will give me his phone and ask me to take photos of him, and I don't mind doing it, but I just feel like on my heart this isn't who I should start my family with because he's so worried about him and never me or others, it's him all the time. He is selfish at times and I'm trying to bring him back down to earth, but I'm starting to give up. I feel terrible because every time we see his friend I can't help but imagine what it would be like with him. He is a very sweet and caring, humble guy. I just am wondering, should I stop bringing myself around him when he is with my boyfriend? Or should I tell my boyfriend he doesn't seem manly enough for me? I am worried about hurting his feelings. Story: we, 25M and 25F, need to change our entire relationship after a car accident. I don't know how to talk to her anymore. My 25 years old girlfriend and I have been together for 6 years, and we're talking about getting married someday when all of this happened. I am deeply in love with her, and want to know how to love her better while keeping myself sane about this. We met in college, where we were both loners, but connected over our love of running. Both of us are super into every aspect of this hobby, even more so than a lot of normal people who run. I gotta get into it all basically. We were both obsessed with types of shoes, the exact running times on certain local trails, niche techniques, water bottles, etc. Literally everything. And I'd met other people who liked running before, but not in the obsessive way I did. When I met her, it was like finding the other half of my soul immediately, as cheesy and cliché as that is. We built our relationship first as running buddies, and our entire relationship blossomed from there. We would go running together every day, and race each other in some of the most highly competitive races I've ever run. I think we've only ever skipped a handful of days every once in a while in our entire relationship. Our shared hobby is our life, and she is my whole life. We have so many memories on specific trails, and whenever we used to go out we'd talk about the latest news related to our shared interest, new sneakers that were getting released, new water bottles we wanted to try, crazy obsessive shit like that. Fast forward to the present. My girlfriend was in a massive car accident 8 months ago, and is paralyzed from the waist down. She is in a wheelchair, and it's been very hard on us both. All of the hard, scary stuff is over, but we're trying to settle back into our life and literally everything is different. For one, we can't go running together anymore, and we might not be able to ever again. She's in physiotherapy, and the hope is that one day she will be able to run again, though not for a long time. I miss this aspect of our relationship so much. We are still partners in the sense that we share certain finances, and we have been learning how to go out on dates, even having to navigate all the accessibility checks around her wheelchair, but the thing we built our relationship on is gone, or at least won't return for a long time. We've tried going to some of the easier trails, and she wheels beside me while I walk, and it was nice the first few times, but I keep thinking how much it's not the same. And since everything happened, it bums her out to talk about anything related to our shared hobby, so we just don't anymore. This whole thing makes me feel terrible and sad and frustrated. Before all of this, we had the best communication in the world, but I don't know how to talk to her about this without making her feel like I'm blaming her, or like she's not enough. I don't love her any less. My 25 years old, girlfriend 25 years old, and I fell in love through running. After a car accident, she cannot run anymore. I don't know how to talk to her about this. Story: I, 38 am so exhausted, depressed, and beat down from never feeling attractive enough, even to my wife, 38F. How can I beat this feeling? I'm 38 years old, around 175 pounds, and right around 6 feet tall. I run and lift fairly regularly, and eat relatively healthy. I feel like maybe I could work on my midsection a little more, but I'm still in light athletic shape. I feel like I'm pretty average and plain in the face and maybe look a little young for my age. In the last few years I've really invested time and money in skincare and think it has paid off. I get fairly expensive haircuts every month or two to keep looking nice. And yet after all of that I am still so insecure about my appearance. I look in the mirror and I just never like what I see. No matter how much I work out, no matter how well I dress, no matter how much time I spend with different hair and skincare products, I still feel like there's just something about me that's off, and still never good enough. Like I just look a little goofy and just a little out of the ordinary, as if there's a little something unexplainable that puts me into some weird territory. Part of what makes me think this is that I don't feel like there's ever any external cues to let me know that all of my work in taking care of myself is paying off. My wife doesn't pay me that much attention. I never ever get compliments from anyone on how I dress or how much working out has paid off. When I am by myself in public, women never give me a second glance. There's just so much that tells me that I am just not enough when it comes to this. I know that a lot of people will say that attractiveness comes from other things as well. How funny a person is, how charismatic they are, stuff like that. I am feeling fairly confident about that too. I am a little shy and introverted until I get to know someone, but after that I feel fairly sure that I am charming and funny and caring for people. I just don't get it. I wish there was anything at all to tell me that I had some worth in terms of my appearance. Not having anything to go on makes me doubt myself and even hate myself at times. I know that things like this are supposed to come from within, but I feel like if I am only ever telling myself that and no one outside of my own biases ever tells me anything, it's just a delusion on my part. Bye and see you again in the next videos and stories.